Tondau te prose eipen, Alexandros te o eides, Hector peime kataisan eneikesas ud hyper aisan. Aie toi credie, pelecus hos estina teires, hos te sindi aduros hupaneros hos rate techne. Nei on ectam neisin, opelle dandros eroen, osoi nisteipesin, atarbe tos no os estin, me moi dorera tapropere cruce es aprodites. Utoia poblet estite onere cude adora. Hossacen autoi dosin, pecondu cantis heloito, nun aut meteleis polemisde menede macestai. Allus men catisontro ascae pantas acaius. Autare men messo ca ere ipilon Menelaon. Sumbale damp Helene, caec te masipasi macestai. Hopoteros de canice secre son te genetai. Tema telone o pantagunaica te oica dagesto.
And to him did godlike Alexander make answer, saying, Hector, seeing that thou dost chide me duly, and not beyond what is due, ever is thy heart unyielding, even as an axe that is driven through a beam by the hand of a man that skilfully shapeth a ship's timber, and it maketh the force of his blow to wax. Even so is the heart in thy breast undaunted. Cast not in my teeth the lovely gifts of golden Aphrodite. Not to be flung aside, look you, are the glorious gifts of the gods, even all that of themselves they give, whereas by his own will could no man win them. But now, if thou wilt have me war and do battle, make the other Trojans to sit down, and all the Achaeans, but set ye me in the midst of, and Menelaus dear to Ares, to do battle for Helen and all her possessions, and whichsoever of us twain shall win, and prove him the better man, let him duly take all the wealth and the woman, and bear them to his home. So let's look at these lines as a whole, shall we, first of all. Really, at the very beginning of this extract, from 58 to, where are we going up to 72, Paris is defending his record and proposes how to settle the war. And his solution is that winner takes all, including Helen, if they should have a private duel. Of course, this would have been much better if it happened at the beginning of the war, wouldn't it, rather than 9 years in. But there we have it. All right, so I think in line 59, you're seeing that Paris does not attempt immediately to deny the charges outright, but he does have excuses to offer. And his style, in between 60 and 63, is less rhetorical than Hector's, but he begins as a parenthesis with a simile, not an especially elaborate one, but developed beyond the main point of comparison nevertheless, of course. And similes are very rare in speeches and practically confined to narrative. So this is interesting. And the purpose of the simile is, of course, rhetorical, and it's to flatter. That's why he's doing it. And it's also to delay a disingenuous and somewhat waspish conclusion. And it's not a diversion or offering the contrast of a different scene as so often in the narrative. Hector's heart, he claims, resembles an unwearying axe which a man uses to shape a ship's timber and which increases his power. He has his own skill, but the axe's potent indestructibility enables him to finish the task. The ship's timber, and that word is neion, is a familiar motif. You see it many times in the Iliad, at least 4 we can name. Right, as that continues then, I suppose after he makes this initial simile, so we're talking about lines now 64 to 66, he completes his sentence, and it's sort of like the idea is you're right to rebuke me and relentless as ever, but do not throw a god's gifts in my face Literally, he says, "Bring before me" or "confront me with," profere. Okay, the this is one of the forms of ancient Greek love poetry. We can see that in profere. Okay, and if you want an example of the sorts of poets that might use this kind of idea of not being able to reject God's gifts, then probably Anacreon and Menelaus might be good examples. Because he says in 65-66, the glorious gifts of the gods are not to be rejected, and he says, sliding cunningly from the particular to the general, and this is where he's sort of being a little bit disingenuous, one would not willingly choose them, he claims. But of course, Paris did choose his good looks by awarding the prize to Aphrodite in exchange for machlosune. Machlosune. Okay, we can see that word in Book 24, line 30 as well, and it's and he exchanged it for his good looks and the most beautiful of women. So, in actual fact, that's his disingenuous argument, really. But as we carry on then, from 67 to 17, we get the surprise that he is actually going to offer a Menelaus a fight, okay, an individual one, a duel, in effect to make good on his previous behaviour as a false champion, a false promachos. Now, of course, Homer has no intention of making Paris out to be utterly contemptible. He has to be shamed into making this offer, that's true, but clearly he has a sense of shame. Hector's managed to find it. And this shame, of course, is the word eidos. And this is an important part of the heroic concept of honour, time, that goes with it. So he will behave badly again in later books, Paris will, but he can, on occasion, be actually heroic, even if he has to be forced into it. Okay, and then we finish off the 71-72. We get different main caesuras without strong semantic pause. What that means is that we've got some unusual bits of meter, which you can look at the beginning of this video in 71-72. And also we've got this reference in line 70 to this ktemata. Okay, that's the possessions. Now, Paris does point out that he's fighting to keep Helen and her possessions, or we think it's hers. But maybe it could be that some of the things that she brought with her from Sparta perhaps belonged to Menelaus rather than belonging to her. I'm thinking of particularly sort of things like gold and jewellery, maybe stuff like that, okay? And so when the oath is going to be taken before this duel, it includes the provision that if Paris succumbs, then the Trojans are to give back, and they do use apodunai, to give back all the possessions as well as Helen herself. And there is also, of course, additional recompense, the time, which would hardly be envisaged here by a Trojan, but which Agamemnon will naturally mention. So let's have a quick look at line 58. We've got this word ton, which is short for auton in Attic Greek. I've got aute, which means in turn, and prosaipe plus the accusative means to address. So perhaps the first line, we might say something like, "And to him did godlike Alexander make answer." To godlike Alexander make answer. Okay, and then in line 59 we have this kata with the accusative, which means in accordance with. We have isa, which is feminine and means destiny or share, and then kataisan, therefore fairly, in accordance with destiny. Okay, fairly. And nikeo, to criticize, huper, beyond, and huper aisan, unfairly. So maybe we could translate line 59 as, "Hector, since you rebuke me so rightly, Okay. And not beyond what is right. Okay, so Hector, since you rebuke me rightly, correctly, and fairly, and not beyond what is fair or what is right. Okay, now on to line 60. We have this word. Well, do you notice Attic A always has an extra I in the Homeric? So AI, okay. Toy stands for soy. We've already talked about that. Cradie means a heart. Pellicus we've had before, an axe. And Pellicus hors. Here it's like the opening or the beginning of a simile, which we talked about in the introduction. That's going to be a shipbuilding simile. And unyielding, ateres, or ateres, sorry, ateres, okay? So here we go. We're going to translate line 60 then, okay? Always is your heart unyielding, like an axe, like an axe, okay? Yes, always is your heart unyielding like an axe. Okay, and line 61, we have this te particle, which is used for generalizing. Asin comes from here, be careful, it's not from Amy to be, it's Amy go. So asin here, from Amy to go. Duros is wood. And that's a neuter word. This is doros is a genitive singular, and it's wood as in a plank of wood or a shaft or the shaft of a spear even. Okay, duros, genitive. Hupo, as you know, the genitive means by, so it's driven by. I think. Okay, aneros is Homeric for andros, and hos hra te. So you'd know that. I will translate that probably as who, and techne, he techne, technical skill, technique. Okay, skill. So putting that all together, we're going to translate line 61. Remember we said just previously, it's like an axe driven through a beam or a plank, driven through a beam by the driven by a man who is skilled, okay, by a man who's skillfully something or other. We're about to find the next line, okay. So like an axe that is driven through a beam by a man who skillfully something or other, and that's the next line, which is 62, and that's neion to, the ship's timber. Okay, yep, wood, a beam. Okay, good. We got ektamnesin, which is a subjunctive from ektamno, to cut down, hew into shape. Okay, ophello, to increase or strengthen, and the subject changes back to the act indicated by the d. Okay, and eroe, power, feminine, eroe, power. So if we want to get into line 62, we can say narrative. Hector's heart, he claims, resembles an unwearying axe which a man uses to shape a ship's timber and which increases his power. Okay, so that's our simile. And so let's see what we've got so far. So we've got Hector, since you rebuke me rightly and not beyond what is right, always in your heart unyielding, like an axe that is driven through a beam by the hand of a man who skillfully shapes a ship's timber, and it makes the force of his blow increase. Okay, so the axe, that's what we're referring to, of course. Okay, it's the axe that strengthens the power of the man. Okay, and that's what he's comparing Hector too, like an axe. Okay, right. Number 63. Soy. We said it's possessive and dative. Any is n plus a dative. Stethos. You might think of the word English stethoscope. A stethos is your chest. So a stethoscope, chest. And atarbetos, that's without fear, without fear. Okay, and noos, mind or purpose. Okay, so if we look at that 63, hos soi eni stethesin atarbetos noos esti. Okay, so just so is the heart in your breast resolute, and just so is the heart in your chest resolute. Okay. Yes, I think that's good. Purpose, nos, yes. Resolute, very good. Okay. Next one, 64. Me plus an imperative makes do not. Okay, if you want to negate an imperative, you use me, not u. Okay. Eratos, lovely. Profero, to bring up. That's pro and fero. To bring up against. And reproach, it'd probably be a better translation for us. Reproach someone in the dative with something in the accusative. So if I'm approaching you with something that you've done, I reproach you, that you'll be in the dative, with something that you've done in the accusative. Chruseos, golden. Okay, so 64. Okay, 64. Me moidor errata profere cruces Aphrodites. Okay, don't throw back in my face or in my teeth. Okay, the lovely gifts of Aphrodite, of golden Aphrodite. Okay, don't throw back the lovely gifts of golden Aphrodite. It's not my fault, in the brackets, I'm so handsome. Of course it is his fault. Okay, 65. Toi, emphatic, meaning indeed, let me tell you, something like that. Apobletos, from apoballo, to be rejected or despised. And erikudes, kudos, you can think of kudos. Erikudes, very famous or glorious. Very famous or glorious. So 65. Not to be flung aside are the glorious gifts of the gods. Okay, not to be flung aside are the glorious gifts of the gods. And 66, hossa, whatever, whatever things, dosin. Here, this is from didomi, a me verb. We haven't done many me verbs, have we? But didomi means to give, and here we have an aorist subjunctive with an indefinite sense. So they may give. That's the idea. Hekon, willingly or wanting, even if he wanted, concessive in use, willingly. Okay. Uk antis eloito, from aireomai, and here it's an aorist optative, and a man could not take them for himself. So it's like these gifts of handsomeness is not really his fault. That's what he's claiming. If we want to try and translate number 66, here we go. Hossaken. So we said whatever things, whatever they themselves give. That means obviously the gods. Whatever the gods give, but of his own will, no man would choose them. Okay. No man would choose them. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the idea. So this is the god's fault, not his. Okay, it made him so handsome that caused the problem. Okay, so not to be flung aside are the glorious gifts of the gods. Whatever they themselves give, but of his own will would no man choose them. No one really want to have these gifts. Okay, as we said, no, that's a bit disingenuous, isn't it? Because he did choose these gifts. Okay, and 67, we have the word aute, which is the same for 58, which means, of course, in turn. We've got this verb, polemizo, polemos, to fight or do battle, and ede, and. Okay, so alus men katison troas kai pantas achaius aut eme etheles polemizain ede majestai. So, but now, if you want me to do war and do battle, yeah, that's it. But now, if you want me to do war and do battle, why use one verb when you can use two? Okay, let's get on to line 68. And this kathison is a aorist imperative of kathizo, to sit down. You can, think of a cathedral as a seat of government. Well, kathizo, seat, to be seated here. Okay. To make sit down, yeah. So here we go. He's going to make everyone sit down, isn't he, while he has a duel. Okay, so let's have a look. So if we want to translate this, alus men kathison troias kai pantas achaios. So here, make the Trojans sit down and all of the Achaeans. Okay. And now we're on to line 69. Autar means but, we've had that before. Mesos is middle, okay, or middle of. Okay, so here we go. Autar emen meso kai ariephlon Menelaon. Okay, so but set me between the armies together with Menelaus, dear to Ares. Okay, but set me in the middle of these two sitting down armies, and along with Menelaus, who's loved by Ares, god of war. 70. Okay, line 70. We've got this sumballo. To throw together, match or pit. Match. We do the expression, don't we, in English? You throw a couple together, you're matching them up, pitting them against each other, perhaps. Amphi, as in amphitheatre, around. Okay, amphi, around. And katemata, the possessions. We talked about these possessions that might be Helen's, but some of them might also be Menelaus's. Okay, so if we want to translate that line, sumbalet amphelene kai katemasi passi majestai. To do battle for Helen and all her possessions. Right, number 71, nearly there. Hopoteros, which means whichever one. Ke plus the subjunctive has an indefinite meaning. Krason, stronger. Good. Okay, krason, stronger. And genetai, aorist subjunctive of gignomi, becomes stronger or gains the upper hand. So 71. Hopoteros de kai nikese krison te genetai. And whoever wins and proves himself the stronger, okay, so whoever wins and proves himself the stronger gets the upper hand. Okay, line 72. Helon, meaning from Ireo, which is obviously good, but it reinforces the idea of taking absolutely everything. Okay, oikade, with the suffix indicating motion towards, homeward bound, to home. Agisto, let him lead or take away. It's a third person imperative. Let him lead or take. So, line 72. Ktemath elon u pantagunai kete okade agesto. Okay, so let him duly take all the wealth and the woman home. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to put up the Greek text now, but I'm going to read you one more time the English translation for everything, and then we're done for this section. So here's the text, and to him did godlike Alexander make answer, saying, Hector, since you rebuke me rightly, and not beyond what is right, always is your heart unyielding, like an axe that is driven through a beam by the hand of a man who skilfully shapes a ship's timber, and it makes the force of his blow increase. Just so is the heart in your breast resolute. Cast not in my teeth the lovely gifts of golden Aphrodite. Not to be flung aside are the glorious gifts of the gods. Whatever they themselves give, but of his own will would no man choose them. But now, if you want me to war and do battle, and make the other Trojans sit down and all the Achaeans, but set me between the armies together with Menelaus, dear to Ares, to do battle for Helen and all her possessions, and whoever wins and proves himself the better man, the stronger man, let him duly take all the wealth and the woman, and take them home.